Good morning. I'm Rev Myron. I'm a minister through Pathways of Light, and I've been a Course in Miracles student for 40 years. I'm going through the text starting this year, paragraph or two at a time, asking Jesus for clarity, and then I write from that clarity. And that's what I'm sharing with you today. So let's get started. We're looking at chapter 2, and we're just starting section 5, which is called the function of the miracle worker. So let's look at paragraph 1. Before miracle workers are ready to undertake their function in this world, it is essential that they fully understand the fear of release. Otherwise, they may unwittingly foster the belief that release is imprisonment, a belief that is already very prevalent. This misperception arises in turn from the belief that harm can be limited to the body. That is because the underlying fear that the mind can hurt itself. None of these errors is meaningful because the miscreations of the mind do not exist. This recognition is a far better protective device than any form of level confusion, because it introduces correction at the level of the error. It is essential to remember that only the mind can create, and that correlation belongs at the thought level. To amplify an earlier statement, spirit is already perfect and therefore does not require correction. The body does not exist except as a learning device for the mind. This learning device is not subject to errors of its own because it cannot create. It is obvious then that inducing the mind to give up its miscreations is the only application of creative ability that is truly meaningful. Well, if I had not already come to this conclusion, this paragraph would have blown me out of the water. Let's look at this sentence. None of these errors is meaningful because the miscreations of the mind do not really exist. This is the bottom line. The mind's miscreations do not actually exist. These miscreations include the body. That's right, the body that most of us are still so closely identified with. The body does not exist. I think I know this, but then some little thing happens or some stray thought betrays me, and I realize I still believe in the body. Jesus has told us that the body is merely part of our experience in the physical world, but he also says that it's almost impossible to deny its existence in the world and that we should not try to do so. In this world, I have a body, but this does not in any way make the body real. Just because I have thought of a body and then projected it onto the world so that I can experience it does not mean it actually exists. No matter how real it looks and feels, no matter how vivid the experience of it, and no matter how strongly I identify myself with it, the body is still an illusion. Because I am ready to undo that identification with body, the Holy Spirit is helping me one step at a time. I think it began in earnest when he directed me to study lesson 190 and to practice what I learned there. I began to let go of the idea that pain is real. In this lesson, Jesus tells us it's our thoughts that causes pain. He says pain cannot be real because it's not part of God. Holy Spirit had me use this idea every time my body experienced pain. After doing this for months with extraordinary results, I began to realize that if pain is not real because God did not make pain, then guilt cannot be real either. All that awful guilt that seemed so impossible to give up must be just a thought in my mind. So I continued the study until very slowly guilt began to loosen its grip on me, or more accurately stated, I began to loosen my grip on guilt. It is amazing to me that pain and guilt are not real, and yet it is now clear to me that they are only thoughts I choose to believe. As Jesus says, I'm doing this to myself. Now the Holy Spirit has me working more directly on the idea of the body itself as an illusion. The other work was leading to this. How else do we feel pain and guilt except through the body? Even emotional pain is possible only if I believe in the body. Bodies are the symbol of separation. They are the way we experience separation. And separation is a cause of suffering of every kind. As I've mentioned before, the Holy Spirit guided me to set aside two of my favorite magic potions, the sleep aid and the headache pill. I can do this because I know that he's not asking me to sacrifice him or to suffer for God. He's asking me to use this experience to remember that the body is not real and that problems with the body are equally unreal. If the body is a thought in the mind that is projected onto the world, then the elements of the body can only be more thoughts. And no matter how much I project, the actual location is not the world, but my mind. So the location of the element can also only be my mind. How can a pill heal an illusion except that the mind that miscreated both and decided on that solution? I made both the problem and the solution, and neither one truly exists. This idea is so clear to me that you would think it would be a snap to do this. But alas, the mind really wants to keep its illusions in place. Last night, I thought about taking an Ambien because I wanted to go to sleep early so I could get up early. And I did not feel sleepy enough to do that. Then I became nervous, thinking this might mean I would not be able to go to sleep. I considered it with my thinking mind, always a mistake, and soon I was confused about the whole thing. It was a brief but total confusion in which I forgot that the body cannot decide whether it's sleepy or not sleepy. It cannot have insomnia. Only the mind can do this. The body has no creative powers. I may as well believe that my hammer can decide what it can do or not do. The body is a tool that responds to the beliefs held in the mind. As my mind began to clear, I forgot all about Ambien. It would be silly to take a pill made to put the body to sleep when my mind was the actual source of sleepiness in the body. Then I noticed another thought, this one from spirit. I was actually keeping myself awake when I could have gone to bed earlier. I realized that I do this all the time. I see that I set myself up to need the pill. The pill is important to the ego mind because it reinforces the idea that the body is real and creative. This keeps the ego in place and in charge. This practice the Holy Spirit has me doing is very important. It has nothing to do with taking pills or not taking them. He is using this practice to help me break my bond with the physical self, to remember what I am. In this step of the process, he is helping me to do so by showing me how to induce the mind to give up its miscreations. Anything I do or think that helps me to remember that there's nothing outside my mind except illusions is how I end this dream and return my full awareness to God. This little experiment with sleeping pills shows me how much I fear release. Just the idea of giving them up made me feel antsy. Jesus says this is a fear that release is imprisonment. If I give up sleeping pills, I will be imprisoned in insomnia, which can only happen if the body were real and could create insomnia. But there is a deeper fear. The fear, I think, is that I will be imprisoned in God, that he is tricking me into returning to him, and this time he will not let me go. That is so crazy. I mean, really, it is God. Do I really believe that he could not reach me in the world if that's what he wanted? And yet there is a fear of God. Jesus will talk to us about this fear later in the course. The fear of God is a belief in the split mind, but it doesn't have to be mine. I forgive the belief. I need to fear God and let it go to the Holy Spirit so that it can be removed from my mind. Thank you so much for joining me in this reading this morning. If you found it helpful, then please like it. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe. And thank you to all of those of you who have done so already. It's very much appreciated. And I'll be back tomorrow with another reading. See you then.